What if my old story is not preventing me from succeeding, but actually the reason why I'm going to be so successful? Stay tuned.
Welcome to the Masters of Creation podcast, your essential guide to manifesting the life you've always dreamed of. In this podcast, we unlock the secrets of transforming your deepest desires into reality. So join us and step into the realm of infinite potential and power, where your dreams are not just possibilities, but the blueprint of your new reality. Let's embark on this journey together and master the art of creation. Welcome to the Masters of Creation podcast, where your journey to mastery begins.
Hi, how are you? I'm Liat Scheffer Ben Yakov, and you're here with me in Masters of Creation podcast, your podcast for manifestation. Today, I want to talk to you about our story. Most of us have all kinds of stories. We tell ourselves different stories of how we were brought up, of our childhood, of what we can do and cannot do. We have a story of what we're good at. We have a story of what doesn't work for us. And we have a story of why we're here. Why am I having this health issues? Why am I not good in relationship? Why am I not good with money? Why am I not happy? Why is things happening? Why are things happening the way they are? Because this is who I am, and this is how I brought up, and this is what I've been through, and therefore this is why my life looks like how it looks. And one of the things that I once heard that I really, really appreciated and really shifted the way I look at stories. Most of us, we tell stories and we say, well, I'm not telling a story, okay? I'm just telling you the reality, the objectivity of my life. It's not a story, it's reality. This is what it is. This is what I've been through. This is truth, okay? With capital T. This is not just some story that I told myself. And we believe those stories and we live by them. And we don't think it's a story that we tell ourselves. We just think it's, an objective, realistic way of looking at my life and being honest with myself that this is what I've been through. This is what I'm good at. This is what not. This is what I can expect of my life. This is what I cannot. And we think that, us telling the story is being really, really conscious, right? And one of the things that happen once we go through all kinds of inner work and personal development processes is we actually have even more stories, right? We have more stories about, why we're here because in the process that we've been through in therapy, in psychotherapy, we talked about our childhood, and now we understand something that my mother did to me when I was 3 years old is still affecting the mother that I am today, and how I feel about myself, and why I am so self-criticizing and all of that. And now I have more stories to explain and to make sense of what's not working for me. And I'm not against therapy. I'm not against, learning and understanding our childhood and why we are the way we are, because it's true. Okay, we've been through all kinds of things, and our inner system made a choice, unconscious choice, mostly, living and coping with reality in a certain way. And it's true. Okay, but we learned this certain way. We learned this coping mechanism when we were 3, 4, 5, 6, even 12 years old. And today I'm 30, 40, 50, and I'm still running my life by those old stories, by those old coping mechanisms. And it's okay, okay? And I believe that at some point, at the entry level, I would say, it's important to understand our coping mechanisms. It's really helpful to understand why we act the way we act and why we are the way we are, because most often it really helps us to understand that it's not something that is wrong with us. It's not something that it's initially not good within us. It's just, what we could do when we were, at a certain age because of some circumstances. And that's okay. And that's helpful. But I always tell people it stopped being helpful in once it becomes the reason why you're staying where you are and not changing. And then it's not an understanding, it becomes the reason why you cannot change it. Okay. And many people go through therapy and personal development processes and, going back to childhood and all of that and understand, why they are the way they are. And now they have the okay note to say, okay, but this is who I am because I cannot change how my mother brought me up. I cannot change how I grew up. I cannot change my father. I cannot change, how things were when I was a child. And it became who I am, and this is it. And I can't change it. And I say that at that point, by the way, understanding why we are the way we are, it's not even not helpful, it's even harmful. Because if me telling the story of my childhood becomes a reason why I cannot change because I cannot change the past, then it becomes my new jail. Okay. And worse than that, if it's some, again, unconscious mechanism that unconsciously I chose when I was a child. Now I unconsciously consciously choose it as my coping mechanism as an adult, because I say, this is who I am, that was the past, this is how I am right now, this is the trauma. One of, another word that we see a lot these days, it's a trauma, it's a post-trauma. And I can't change it because, I'm suffering for trauma. And I'm not belittling trauma. Believe me, I work with trauma a lot. I myself been through many different events of traumas. But I believe that understanding trauma is the key to understand how we can help someone, okay? And not the reason to tell him or her that they're going to stay this way for life. And sometimes, unfortunately, I see those stories, okay, of people that, they've been analyzed and now they feel like nobody can help me because of this trauma. And for me, this is the worst because before that, they had hope. They had, the belief that maybe, I will do something, I will see someone and they will be able to help me. And now it is something initially wrong with me and my life, and I cannot change this. And for me, this is the worst because before they had hope and now we took their hope away. So we have this, we understand where we came from. We understand why we created, different beliefs, different emotions, different behaviors, different habits, and that's okay to understand. But the main reason, the real game begins once you ask yourself, okay, this is a story, but now what am I going to do with this? Is my history. Okay, what am I going to do with this? And by the way, if we listen to the word history, it is his story. Okay, it's a story. My history is a story. And we all know of people that they have an awful history, right? They have they grew up in really hard um, surrounding, uh, going through abuse and horrible, horrible things, and they chose to live differently. They chose to thrive. Okay. And we can see how their story not only was not the reason why they got stuck, was actually became a reason why they thrived and why they reach where they are. Tony Robbins, for me, is one of the people that I really appreciate the way he really took his story. And that's not just the story that he tells today when he's successful, but for him, even when he was 16, 17, and even earlier, that story for him at that point was the reason why he must succeed. And the difference is not the objective of your life, the real happening of what really happened there in your past is what story are you telling yourself about that. And he has this story that he tells that, it was, I think, Thanksgiving, and someone came to bring food to the house and there was nothing to eat, and his stepfather was really upset and all of that. And this story could be another horrible story of an abusive father and a sad story of not having anything. And he could be, living and support for the rest of his life. But at that moment, or maybe it took him years to change the story. I don't know. I haven't been there. This is how he tells the story. But he looked at that and said, people help people. Okay. And I want to be in the side that help others. And that moment or that story, looking at this and saying, this is not going to be what defined my life, that I'm going to be, living on support and waiting for donation. I'm going to be the one to donate, to help other people. So the same situation, he chose to look at it and tell himself a new story, that this moment is going to be the reason why I'm going to succeed. And we all have those stories. We all have many, many moments in our lives that we either at that point look at and said, this is going to be the reason why I'm going to succeed, or this is going to be the reason why I'm not going to succeed. And it doesn't matter, if you're doing this for 30, 40, 50, 60 years, telling yourself this is the reason why I'm not going to succeed, because at that moment, at this moment, right now, when you're listening to me, you can make the decision, this story or the story that I have for 50, 60 years is going to be the reason why I'm going to be successful. And this is life changing. And for me, what gives me hope, especially working with so many people for so many years, is knowing that at each point, it doesn't matter how old are you, it doesn't matter how many years are you been telling this story, you can change it right now, at this moment. You can end this podcast and make a decision to tell yourself a new story. You can even make the decision right now, even before this podcast is going to end. And tell yourself, and I'm going to give you some homework here. Ask yourself, what story? We all have many, many stories, okay? But ask yourself, what's one story, a main one, okay? If it's too big, go to a smaller story, okay? But take the biggest story that you feel that you can or willing to change at this point, okay? So take one story that you've been telling yourself for a while and ask yourself, the first question is, am I willing to change it? Am I willing to change it? Okay. How is it affecting my life? If my life, and I believe, and this is something that even the quantum physics tell us, that there is no reality. And material, mass, okay, is only energy in a certain form. And energy in a certain form is information. And information is a story. Each story that we tell ourselves has a certain vibration, a certain frequency. And this certain frequency of story that we tell ourselves is the information that turns energy into form. Which means that if I have a story of being poor, it has a certain frequency of being poor, not having enough. Okay. And this story is literally creating mass, creating form in my reality, which is creating the money that I don't have in my bank account. So the story that we tell ourselves is not just nice to have something to tell ourselves in our mind to wake up in the morning and smile, which is important for itself. I'm not undermining this. Having a good story and waking up with a smile is important. Okay, it's maybe even more important than anything else. Okay, so telling ourselves a better story change our life in a minute, because if I can look at myself and tell myself a better story about myself, I already feel better. Okay, but it goes way beyond that, because if I tell a different story, that my energy is shifted, that the information that creates reality, okay, in quantum physics, the information that becomes matter is shifted. Okay, so ask yourselves, this story, what is the main story that I'm telling myself? For how many years? What is the frequency of this story? Is this the frequency of lack? Is it frequency of illness? Is it frequency of pain? Is it frequency of not enoughness? Is it a frequency of being a victim? What is the frequency of the story that I tell myself? And how is it being presented and reflected in my life? Because one thing that you must understand, stories are not just for books and movies. Stories are realities. Okay, they are not a TV, they're reality TV, but your reality, your life. Okay, what your life is, what unfolds in your reality, day in and day out, every day, your present, your future, and your past. They are all different stories. And what happens to most of us, and that's the reason that we try but don't succeed in creating change, is we maybe try to do different things. We maybe try to say different mantras. We may do all kinds of meditations or listen to podcasts or listen to some Instagram reel. But then we go back and we tell the same story about ourselves and about our life, and nothing changes. Because our reality is not the actions, it's part of it, because actions are part of the story, okay? But it's not just the action, it's not just the thoughts, it's not just the emotions, it's the collective, which the collective is a story, because a story, it has a theme, okay? It has beliefs, it has emotion. Okay, what makes a good story is emotion. Okay, right? And once we tell ourselves a certain story, it has a vibration, it has a frequency, and then it creates actions. It creates habits. It creates actions. Okay, because if I tell myself that I'm not good at something, I'm either not going to do it, right? I'm going to avoid it, or I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do it maybe not intentionally, but unconsciously, intentionally, not good, because I'm not good at this, right? That's not for me. So it really affects everything in our lives. So the story is our reality. It affects every level. Remember the four realms of physical, emotional, mental, and energetic levels. It affects all of them. And one of the things that really, really was another point that completely shifted the way I look at stories, and I do it really daily, is the word destroy. If you change the letter there's, if you change the letters there, it's the story. Destroy the story. Write it down and you'll see it. And destroying something is de-storing it, is changing the story, is taking the story out of this concept, out of this reality, out of this material. And once you take the story out of your reality, it is being destroyed. It is being shifted. It is changed. It is transformed. And going back to your homework, find a story. Ask yourself the frequency, how it is being reflected in your life. Are you willing to change the story, or are you willing, or do you choose, and now it's a choice to keep living by this story? Because if you're not, then the final question is, what new story are you willing to tell yourself? And I want to tell you my own little story about telling stories. Is one of the things that I actually, you probably heard me even in this podcast talking about that, I was really, really bad at creating reality, and everything in my life always worked in the worst way I could have imagined, and everything is going hard in my life, and I always have to, there are so many challenges in my life. And again, if you look at my life, you can see that. And I use it as a story because first it's my story, okay, and I've been telling this story for many years, and it actually helped me up to a certain point, okay, creating the Masters of Creation model, becoming the teacher that I am, becoming the mentor that I am, becoming a healer, helping people, because, I've been through so much. I went through all this hardship and challenges and all of that. And I crossed that, and I find ways to deal with it. And I created modalities and methods and healing methods and all of that. And it's amazing. It was an important part of my life. And I'm not giving up that, everything that came out of this, and that's great. But then I realized a few years ago is that I keep telling this story to myself that everything in my life goes hard and everything in my life that can go wrong still go wrong. And I will, and I know that I'm able to change that now. Okay. And I know that I'm able, I have the Masters of Creation model. I know what to do when things don't go well. But it's still a story that I held within myself that first things doesn't go well. And then I use the tools that I have and I change that. And at some point I realized I don't want to tell this story anymore. I don't want things to go wrong so I can fix them and they will go well. I am done with that. I am done with going wrong and well and fixing. It's enough. And then I looked back, and that's the amazing thing about story. You think that okay, I'm going to tell this story from this moment on, but it doesn't change the past, right? It doesn't change what was. And this is what I like about the Tony Robbins story is that he looks at the past. He looks at the moments that were hard for him, and they were actually the good story. Although, again, objectively, they're not great. So looking back, I said, you know what? If I look at my history, his story, my story, and I look at everything that I've been through, yeah, it's true that many things didn't go the way I thought they will. But if I honestly look at this, and if I change this story and destroy the way I was looking at this before, it actually always went better at the end than I could have imagined. And I decided to change and shift the story. Not that everything goes wrong and everything is a challenge and everything that I want to go a certain way goes a different way. And at the end, it turns out okay because I work so hard and I use all the tools. I decided to tell a new story and look and say, everything in my life, honestly, okay? One of the things I want to tell you, we said that stories have emotions, right? So you cannot fake a story. You need to find a story that you can believe it, okay? Believe in it. And the story has to be for yourself believable, okay? Something that you can tell and you can believe yourself. It doesn't matter if your family believe that, if your partner believe in the story, you have to believe in the story. Otherwise, it's just another story, okay, like many, many others. But the story that will create the frequency is the one with the emotion, okay? So if you still have an underlying story that you really believe in it and the emotion is there, then it's not going to work. Okay, we can't fake it. You can't work on yourself. You can maybe, work on other people, but not yourself. Okay, so it has to be a story that is coherent within you and that you can believe it. So I look at my life and I said, you know what? You're telling this story that everything went wrong and everything was hard, but that's not true. It maybe didn't go the way you thought it would. It maybe didn't go straightforward, but it always, always turned out better than you could have imagined to begin with. And I looked at everything that I've been through, every situation that I used to say it went wrong, it went hard, it didn't work. And I said, well, I can see the magic there. I can see the grace there. I can see how it turned out to be even better than I could have imagined, even better than I thought it would be. And that's true. That's true. And that's something that, looking backwards, connecting the dots, I could see. And I decided to tell a new story. That everything in my life, including the past, was actually going well. Was actually not just going well, was going better than I could have imagined. And everything in my life always, always, always turned out to be better than I can imagine. And that's truth. It's just a truth that I'd never looked at because I was so busy looking at the hardship and the challenges and the traumas and the pain. And it was there and it is still there. But it is not the story that I choose to tell. Okay, just a few days ago, I interviewed to a podcast and I was asked if I could go back to one day in my life, what would be the day that I would go back to? And I couldn't, and I cannot change anything about this day. This is, one of the things that you need to choose this day, but you cannot change anything. And I said I would go back to the birth of my oldest, my first child, my first daughter. And it was the horrible, horrible day. Really, it was painful. There was a lot of danger to myself, to my daughter. She was born in a week, couple of hours to week 35. It was 34 plus 6 when my water broke, and I was 6 weeks in bed rest. And I went through an appendectomy during the pregnancy. It was a horrible, horrible, horrible situation. And we were afraid whether or not I'm going to survive this, whether or not she's going to survive it. We were really, it was chaos. It was pain. I got uh, Pitocin without getting anything to relieve pain. It was hell. I have a high level of pain endurance, and it was horrible, horrible, more horrible than I ever felt, physically, emotionally, mentally. And then they gave me my healthy daughter and I held her. And that moment I became a mother and I still have tears. She's 17 plus. And I wouldn't change anything because there was so much grace in this moment. There was so many good things in this moment. There was so much blessed. Everything had happened in the best way that it could have happened. She was born breathing and eating, and I didn't have even to give her to the NICU because she was born 2 hours into week 35. And if she was born 3 hours earlier, she would go to the NICU automatically for 48 hours. And it was really important for me to nurse her and for her to be close to me from the moment that she is born, something that I truly believe in. Um, and everything turned out to be amazing. And she's an amazing girl. And I was blessed with her. And I was blessed with a healthy daughter. And I look at this day today and I don't look at the hardship, although it was there, the pain and everything, and the fear and anxiety and chaos and everything that was there. And I look at this and it was the most blissful day in my life because I became, oh my God, because I became her mother. And today when I look at this and I can say this story and could tell this story differently now because I chose to change all the stories of my life. By the way, one of the things that it's really, really powerful once you change, and this is why I told you, find the core story that you feel that you can change right now. Okay, because once you change it, because I didn't go back to changing all the stories, but I changed the main story. The main story was that everything that can go wrong, and everything in my life is hard. And it's true. It could be a healthy in 39 weeks birth and natural to a healthy girl. It could have been like that, right? It's an option. It happens to other people, not me. But that was not the case. Okay, so there's a better option, right? It could have been. But for me in that moment, that what was. And since I chose to change the narrative of my life, that everything happens in the most miraculous, magical way, I can look at this and say, oh my God, there was so many bliss and magic and grace in this day because she was born, she was healthy, and I was healthy, and everything went well, and so many things could go wrong, and they did not. Okay. And this because I chose to change the narrative of my life, that everything in my life goes much better than I can ever imagine. Okay. And it changes everything. And now I can look back at everything that I've been through. And I've been through a lot, really, believe me, a lot of trauma, a lot of pain, a lot of illness, a lot of uh, um, really, really chaos, really, so many things that could take my life. I could make different choices and be a very miserable person. And I was for many years. And I chose to tell a different narrative, a different story, and it changes all of them. All of them, because I changed the narrative that everything in my life goes wrong before it goes better. And I change it to everything in my life always goes better than I could ever imagine, with bliss and magic and grace. And I can look at every story in my life and I can tell you the story with this narrative. And that's the amazing thing that happens when you change your story, when you change your narrative. You destroy the past that makes you a victim, that makes you weak, that makes you not able, to a past that make you successful, able, have, everything that you can want and ask for, just because you choose to look at your life from a different perspective. And that just changes everything. And not just the way you look at what was, but how you live your life currently and what you're going to keep unfold and creating and manifest in your future. And now when I go through things that are hard, and we have a war here and many things are not as great as I, may want them to be, I don't look at them and I say, oh, it's hard and why is it happening to me? And here you see again, and the war and all of that. And I say, how is it happening in the most miraculous, marvelous way that it can, how everything unfolds perfectly in the way that is right for me, how I can trust everything that is happening for me, that it happened for the best and will take me to even a better place that I can imagine. So everything that I go through right now takes me to a different point of view, to a different coping mechanism, to a different way that I deal with reality at the moment. And that unfolds a completely different reality in the now and, going forward. So it changes everything, the past, the present, and the future. And one of the reasons that people, as I said before, don't change and their future is their past, they wake up to yesterday. That's, when you think about this is what most people do. They wake up to yesterday. Everything in their day is going to be exactly the way it was yesterday and the day before and the day before and 10 years back and 20 years backwards. So once you change the story, you don't wake up to yesterday. You wake up to a different today and you create a different tomorrow. And that's the power of story. You destroy the things that doesn't work and you recreate the things that you do. And one last thing about that, some stories are good. I'm not telling you to change all your stories. Some stories that you tell about yourself are good. And that's great. Give yourself, a high five for that and cheer yourself for that and keep telling them. Okay. Stories that are working for you and that are good and that are creating good reality, good frequency. That's great. Don't change them. Keep telling them. But if there's a story that doesn't work for you, that doesn't create what you want, you can de-story it, destroy it, and you can create a new one that you believe in it. And that's the most important thing. So I hope you got something out of this episode. And as always, I invite you to share with me what you got from this episode. If you have other things that you want me to talk about regarding manifestation, creating your reality, please write down in the comments below. If you're new to this podcast, then first, welcome. And I'm really happy that you joined me. And I welcome you to subscribe, to give us 5 stars so we can get to more and more people. I'm Liat Scheffer Ben Yakov, and you're listening to Masters, the Manifestation podcast of Masters of Creation. Thank you for being with us, and I'll see you or hear you, or you'll hear me in our next episode. So bye for now.
Thank you for being with us. I invite you to share your key takeaways and insights from this episode, and to send in your questions about manifestation for upcoming episodes. If you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, we'd love for you to join us. Your support helps us spread the message and create a meaningful global impact. See you next time.